This being the Disappearance Day anniversary of Srimad Jayananda Prabhu, we're going to sing Narottam Dasa's song, Feeling the Lamentation Due to Separation from the Lord and His Associates. It's page number 91. Krishna Chaitanya. Srila Prabhupada said that we should observe this day just like the observance of any other prominent Vaishnava. In other words, this is a special devotee. We're hoping to glorify him, invoke his mercy, and maybe become a better devotee because of it. Ye anilo premadana karuna prachur Ye anilo premadana karuna prachur Eno Prabhu Kota Gela Acharya Thakur Eno Prabhu Kota Gela Acharya Thakur Kahamora Swarupa Kaha Sanatan Kaha Mora Swarupa Rupa Kaha Sanatan Kaha Dasa Raghunatha Patita Pavan Kaha Dasa Raghunatha Patita Pavan Kaha Mora Bhatta Yuga Kaha Kaviraj Kaha Mora Bhatta Yuga Kaha Kaviraj Eka Kale Kota Gela Gora Nataraj. Eka kale kota gela Gora Nataraj. Pashane kutibo mata Anile Pashibo. Pashane Kutibo Mata Anile Pashibo. Goranga Gunera Nidhi Kotagele Pabo. Goranga Gunera Nidhi Kotagele Pabo. Se Saba Sangira Sange Ye Koilo Vila. Se Saba Sangira Sange Ye Koilo Vila. Se Sangana Paya Kande Narotamodas. Se Sangana Paya Kande Narotamodas. Jaya Vaishnav Thakur, Jaya Vaishnav Thakur, Vaishnav Thakur, Jai Vaishnav Thakur. Jai Vaishnav Thakur, Vaishnav Thakur, Vaishnav Thakur, Jai Vaishnav Thakur. Prabhupada, 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 Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki, Srila Jayananda Prabhu ki. Vishpad Paramahamsa Pravajagacharya Shotar Shatar Shishi Maresi Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai ISKCON Founder Acharya Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Rupa Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasa Raghunath Sad Goswami Prabhugan Ki Prem Sikaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrindike Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Shamakun Radhakun Giri Govardhan Ke. The disappearance anniversary of Srila Jayananda Prabhu Ki. Srila Jayananda Prabhu Ki. Samaveda Gaura Bhakta Vrindike. Gaur Premanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shishi Guru and Gauranga. Glories to Srila Prabhupada. Namam Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Badale Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namane. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharne Nevisheshishanan Paschadistana. So it's not just a ritual. We'll read the translations. He who brought the treasure, divine love, who is filled with compassion and mercy. Where is such a personality as Srinivasa Acharya gone? Where are my Srup Damodar and Rupa Goswami? Where's Sanatan? Where's Raghunath Das, the savior of the fallen? Where are my Raghunath Bhatta and Gopal Bhatta? Where's Krishna Das Kaviraj? Where did Lord Gauranga, the great dancer, suddenly go? I'll smash my head against a rock and enter into fire. Where will I find Lord Gauranga, the reservoir of all wonderful qualities? Being unable to obtain the association of Lord Gauranga, accompanied by all these devotees, whose association he performed his pastimes, Narottam Das simply weeps. Being unable to obtain the association of Srila Prabhupada, accompanied by all of his wonderful devotees, in whose association he performed his pastimes, we can simply weep. So I thought we could read from the 5th canto today. I'm going to try and interlace glorification of Jayananda Prabhu with Prahlad Maharaj, because tomorrow is the appearance day of Lord Nrsingadev, who of course appeared out of love for his dearmost devotee, his dear devotee, Sri Prahlad Maharaj. So this will be 5th canto, 18th chapter, verse number 12. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Yayasti Bhaktir Bhagavati Akinchana. Yashasti Bhaktir Bhagavati Akinchana. Savar Gunais Tatra Samasate Sara. Sarvar Gunas Tatra Samasate Sara. Harav Abhaktasya Kato Mahadguna. Harav Abhaktasya Kato Mahadguna. Manoratena Sati Dhavato Bihi. Manoratena Sati Dhavato Bihi. Yashasti Bhaktir Bhagavati Akinchana. Sarvagunas tatra samasate sara. Harava bhakta shikato mahadgana. Manoritena sati dhavato bihi. Yashasti bhaktir bhagavati akinchana. Sarvagunas tatra samasate sara. Harava bhakta shikato mahadgana. Manoritena sati dhavato bihi. Yashasti bhaktir bhagavati akinchana. Sarvagunas tatra samasate sara. Sara bhakta shikano adgana. Manoritena sati dhavato bihi. Yashasti bhakti bhagavati akinchana. Samasate sara. Arava bhakta shikato gunadma. Thank you. Manoritena sati dhavato bihi. Sarvagunas taitras masate sara. Arava bhakta shikato mahagana. Manoritena sati dhavato. Yasha, of whom asti there is bhakti, devotional service, Bhagavati, to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, akinchana, without any motive, sarvai, with all, gunai, good qualities, there, in that person, samasate, reside, sara, all the demigods, harau, unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, a bhaktasya, of a person who is not devoted, kutaha, where? Mahat guna, good qualities. Manoritena, by mental speculation. Asati, in the temporary material world. Dhavataha, who is running. Bihi, outside. Translation, all the demigods and their exalted qualities, such as religion, knowledge, and renunciation, become manifest in the body of one who's developed unalloyed devotion for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vasudeva. On the other hand, a person devoid of devotional service and engaged in material activities has no good qualities, even if he's adept at the practice of mystic yoga or the honest endeavor of maintaining his family and relatives. He must be driven by his own mental speculations and must engage in the service of the Lord's external energy. How can there be any good qualities in such a man? Wonderful purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. As explained in the next verse, Krishna is the original source of all living entities. This is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 15:7, wherein Krishna says, Mamaivam sho jivaloke jivabhuta sanatana manasastan indriyani prakritistani karshati. The living entities in this conditioned world are my eternal fragmental parts. due to conditioned life, they're struggling very hard with the 6 senses, which include the mind. All living entities are part and parcel of Krishna, and therefore, when they revive their original Krishna consciousness, they possess all the good qualities of Krishna in a small quantity. When one engages himself in the 9 processes of devotional service, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam, Padasevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasham, Sakyam, Atma, Nivedanam, one's heart becomes purified, and he immediately understands his relationship with Krishna. He then revives his original quality of Krishna consciousness. Before I read the rest of the purport, I'd like to say my prayers because I'm going to say a couple of things. Would you please join in with me? Om Jnana-timirandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chakshur Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurve Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadandikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Scha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shiva Shakan Vitam Sha Hey Krishna Karana Sindho Dina Bando Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurange Radhe Vrindavanishwari Vrishabhana Sutta Devi Pranamami Hari Priya Vancha Kapatrubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bevacha Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So this is a prayer, one of a few spoken by Prahlad Maharaj in Hari Varsha. Like this is Bharat Varsha, so there are other Varshas, 6 other Varshas, I believe. And Lord Nrsingadev is the predominating deity worshipped there. And so by the grace of the Lord, Prahlad Maharaj is there to this day worshiping Lord Nrsingadev, absorbed in Krishna consciousness. And this is a wonderful prayer that he gives, just as there are several others in this section. What to speak of in the 7th canto. But the next part, next 2 paragraphs of this purport, I want you to realize that as the qualities of the Vaishnavas are described, these certainly apply to Prahlad Maharaj, who Lord Nrsingadev declared as the best of all devotees. Among the 12 Mahajans, it's understood that Prahlad Maharaj is the best of all of them. So these qualities that we'll hear of, they not only apply to Prahlad Maharaj, but every single one of them applied to the dear disciple of Srila Prabhupada, Srila Jayananda Prabhu. Now, if anybody were to say Srila in his presence when he was here, he would simply walk away. He wouldn't stay in your company. And devotees very quickly understood this. If you want to get the company of Jayananda, keep silent about your appreciation of the incredible qualities that this devotee has and in how inspiring he is in his full-out dedication and service to Srila Prabhupada. So Srila Prabhupada says in the Adi Leela of Chaitanya Charitamrita, chapter 8, there's a description of some of the qualities of devotees. For example, Sri Pandit Haridas is described as being very well behaved, tolerant, peaceful, magnanimous, and grave. In addition, he spoke very sweetly. His endeavors were very pleasing. He was always patient. He respected everyone. He always worked for everyone's benefit. His mind was free of duplicity, and he was completely devoid of all malicious activities. These are all originally qualities of Krishna. And when one becomes a devotee, they automatically become manifest. Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj, the author of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, says that all good qualities become manifest in the body of a Vaishnava, and that only by the presence of these good qualities can you distinguish a Vaishnava from a non-Vaishnava. Can you hear how important that sentence is of Srila Prabhupada? They have actors sometimes put on dhotis, may even shave their head or put on the bald cap, what have you. They may try to emit the devotion. Emit's not the right word. Emulate the devotion. And then you have devotees. Not all devotees are of the same caliber. Neophyte, madhyams, topmost devotees. But how do you distinguish between the different classes of devotees? How do you distinguish from the devotees from the non-devotees? Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami says it's not their appearance. It's not necessarily what they speak. There are many professional reciters of Srimad Bhagavatam that can bring a crowd to tears discussing the pastimes from Srimad Bhagavatam. Expert. So many scholars know the Shastra and have put us to shame in how much they know the different Vedic scriptures through their academic scholarship. But how do you know who a devotee is? It's by their qualities. And the interesting thing about the devotees, a real devotee, yashasti bhaktir bhagavatiya kinchana savar kanas tatra samasate sara, one who's completely surrendered to Krishna. Sometimes you won't even notice them because a very prominent quality of the devotees is humility. And in humility, you don't push yourself up to the front. You don't try to be right next to the spiritual master. Certainly that was the example set by Jayananda Prabhu. Because he didn't wear saffron, because he didn't take sannyas, many of the devotees in the movement didn't know. Here's a Param Vaishnava. Here is a devotee whose life did not belong to himself. He had given it completely in the service to his spiritual master, and as such dedicated his life to bringing as many other people to the service of Srila Prabhupada, and thus helping to expand and spread the movement of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So Srila Prabhupada says that Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami lists the following 26 good qualities of a Vaishnava. 1, he's very kind to everyone. 2, he does not make anyone his enemy. 3, he's truthful. 4, he's equal to everyone. 5, no one can find any fault in him. 6, he's magnanimous. 7, he's mild. 8, he's always clean. 9, he's without possessions. 10, he works for everyone's benefit. 11, he's very peaceful. 12, he's always surrendered to Krishna. 13, he has no material desires. 14, he's very meek. 15, he's steady. 16, he controls his senses. 17, he does not eat more than required. We'll have to comment on that one. 18. I'm going to do right now so I don't lose the train of thought. Jayananda Prabhu could eat mountainous quantities of prasadam. He had such devotion for prasadam. The devotees say that even the way in which he said prasadam made you want to become attached to prasadam the way he was. But here's the caveat. Would that be a proper use of that term? But here's the point. He didn't then go to the ashram and sleep it off. He would get up before everybody, and he would go to bed later than everybody. He didn't take naps. In the marathons of the Rath Yatra festivals in the last 3 or 4 days, he took on Rath Yatra. That's why his picture's at the feet of Lord Jagannath. Srila Prabhupada said on Rath Yatra day, during the procession, his picture should be put on the Lord's cart. And they generally pick that picture where he was steering the cart down 5th Avenue in New York City. Crowning glory of Srila Prabhupada's having conquered the most important city in the world, the citadel, capital of Maya. In those last 3 or 4 days, when he's personally building the cart along with his ragtag band of devotees, gypsies, hippies, drunks, Hell's Angels, etc., equal to all, compassionate to all, giving everyone the opportunity to engage in this service. Jaipataka Swami told me when he was Bhakta, was it Jay? That when he went to the Bay Area, that Jayananda grabbed him, said, "Can you hammer a nail?" "Yeah." "Here, show me." "Ah, that's expert. Here, can you do another one?" And then he engaged him in helping to build the carts. Jaipataka Swami glorifies Jayananda Prabhu. And you can see the similarity between the two. They were always on a marathon. In spontaneous bhakti, no one has to tell you, get out the door and go distribute. No one has to tell you, come on, you can do a better job. Being absorbed, being attentive to details in this service. No one has to wake you up. One runs to Mangal Arti. No one has to wake you up in japa. One attentively chants, as he did, very attentively his japa. This is taste. This is attachment. This is spontaneity in devotional service. This is what we're being offered. And we can compare ourselves in this list of the qualities of the Vaishnavas and the examples set by Jayananda Prabhu and Prahlad Maharaj and see where we stand. How many more mountains do we have to climb? Rivers do we have to cross in our tests, in our lessons, in our surrendering process of Krishna consciousness? So, he does not eat more than required. 18, he's not influenced by the Lord's illusory energy. 19, he offers respects to everyone. 20, he does not desire any respect for himself. 21, he's very grave. 22, he's merciful. 23, he's friendly. 24, he's poetic. 25, he's expert. 26, he's silent. We, of course, know silent means always talking about Krishna. Jayananda Prabhu was always glorifying his spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada. This is the qualification manifest in the devotees. Silent with no nonsense being spoken. If he heard anybody being criticized, he'd immediately walk away. If somebody made a mistake, he would either ignore it or he would justify it, like, of course, it's natural. I would have made the same mistake. We hear in the Nectar of Instruction that one who is free from the bad fault of criticizing others, you can understand how elevated they are. It's part of the description of the Uttama Adhikari. He never criticized others. He was always glorifying others, no matter how insignificant the service. Wow, that's wonderful. I could have tagged it on with the Prasadam, attachment to Prasadam. He would often say after Prasadam, that's the best Prasadam I ever had. This is Krishna consciousness. It's Krishna's mercy. Prahlad Maharaj, he was given poison by his father, Hiranyakashipu, and his demon followers. He offered it to Krishna. It was nectar. It had no effect upon Prahlad Maharaj. It was the spiritual mercy of the Lord. Prasadam fell on the floor. This is old school. We don't do it anymore because we're very conscientious of how people will perceive us, but he would lick it off the floor. This is the mood of the servants of Lord Jagannath in Puri. They understand that the Lord's mercy, prasadam, is for everybody. They understand even if a leper, a mangy, stray dog has bitten into the prasadam, impossible to contaminate. Srila Prabhupada has given us instructions. No, we shouldn't be eating the remnants, Sunday feast remnants of the guests and what have you the next day. We don't act on the elevated platform of these exalted Vaishnavas. We don't imitate them. But he had full faith, and those who have full faith, Krishna reciprocates. I want to read the letter that Srila Prabhupada wrote after he heard that his dear disciple had passed away. It's May 1st, 1977. Most of us were young pups in our 20s. Maybe some of the leaders were in the, the later 20s. Jayananda was much older than most of the devotees, but he passed away, and it was quite a shock because we were unfamiliar with death. Basically speaking, I had a friend in high school pass away. That was a shocker. How do you die? Little boy, I saw my grandmother, who I never really knew, my father's mother. Went to her home for her wake and funeral, but I was so young I didn't really know what was going on. But Jayananda, oh my God. And Tamal Krishna Goswami describes that Srila Prabhupada was greatly feeling the separation of his disciple, and he became so internal and grave. These are Maharaja's words. Who knows the validity of them? But he said it was as if he was searching throughout the universe. Where is my disciple? Where is he gone? So that's the perspective of one devotee. As I quoted the other day, unless you're on the same level, Sanatana Goswami says you don't know the thoughts. You don't truly understand the behavior, words sometimes of the Param Vaishnavas. But anyway, needless to say, Srila Prabhupada was in a reverie, a very internal mood, and it was all about his love and his desire for the benefit of his servant, Jayananda Prabhu. So he wrote a letter that he wanted to be distributed throughout the movement for everyone to hear. And he wrote it, of course, to, "My dear Jayananda, please accept my blessings. I'm feeling very intensely your separation. Now we observe these disappearance days, and if we didn't have any reciprocation with the devotees, just another day, really. You're not moved to tears. Your heart may or may not be softened by the thought of what a loss to this world when a jewel like devotee, Jayananda Prabhu, leaves it behind. But to hear your spiritual master say, I am feeling very intensely your separation. Can you imagine how close the two were? How close Srila Prabhupada was to Jayananda, how dear he held his disciple to him, for all the service that he rendered, for all the devotees that he made, for basically being the seed, the root, the, practically speaking, the trunk of initiating Rath Yatra as a celebration, glorification of the Lord that's now experienced worldwide. This credit can go to Jayananda Prabhu. Such a wonderful service that Srila Prabhupada was very much attached to from his very childhood. So he's saying, I'm feeling very intensely your separation. In 1967, you joined me in San Francisco. You were driving my car and chanting Hare Krishna. You were the first man to give me some contribution, $5,000 for printing my Bhagavad Gita. In 1967, $5,000 was a heck of a lot of money. You could buy a lot with $5,000. Significant contribution. All his life savings. After that, you've rendered very favorable service to Krishna in different ways. Now, I think that let me read this sentence. So, I so hope at the time of your death you were remembering Krishna, and as such you have been promoted to the eternal association of Krishna. Now, I think the next paragraph, next part of this letter is really directed to the rest of his disciples because of the way Srila Prabhupada ends the letter. But he says, if not, if you did not at the time of your death remember Krishna and go back to Krishna, if not, if you had any tinge of material desire, you've gone to the celestial kingdom to live with the demigods for many thousands of years and enjoy the most opulent life of material existence. From there, you can promote yourself to the spiritual world. But even if one fails to promote himself to the spiritual world, at that time he comes down again on the surface of this globe and takes birth in a big family, like a yogis or a brahmanas, or an aristocratic family, where there's again chance of reviving Krishna consciousness. And here I think he takes up again addressing Jayananda Prabhu personally, because he says, but as you were hearing Krishna Kirtan, Srila Prabhupada's chanting was right there on the tape recorder, tape player I should say, dating the technology of the days. Because you were hearing Krishna Kirtan, I'm sure that you were directly promoted to Krishna Loka. Janma karma chame divyam evam yo veti tatvata tvakta deham punarjanma naiti mameti sorjana. Bhagavad Gita 4:9. Krishna has done a great favor to you, not to continue your diseased body, and has given you a suitable place for your service. Thank you very much. Your ever well-wisher, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami. Basically, he set the example for us as Srila Prabhupada, before Srila Prabhupada passed away. Srila Prabhupada had the desire that I want to die on the battlefield. I want to be like Arjuna, fight to the very end. As long as there was any value, any possibility of using the body in the Lord's service, even if it was completely diseased, even if you were bedridden, I still want to preach. I still want to do what I can as long as there is a breath left in my life. And Jayananda Prabhu showed us that. Basically, when his leukemia, cancer of the lymph node, system and blood had incapacitated him. He was so weak he couldn't get out of bed. From his bed in Los Angeles, that yatra had never had a Rath Yatra. He floated the idea past Rameshwar Prabhu. We should have Rath Yatra. No, it's too difficult. And you're bedridden, What did Jayananda Prabhu do? Forget that. From his bed, using the telephone, he organized and he directed all of his entourage, his faithful men, to go out and do the necessary, ordering the lumber, making sure the lumber company understood, put it where this cannot be returned, had it delivered, had his men go and get the permits for the festival, raised funds. He pulled it off from his deathbed. This is really miraculous. This is the potency of unalloyed devotional service. This is the spiritual platform of Krishna consciousness. Nothing, no one can stop it. But of course the body is meant to be given up. It's temporary. It's not who we are. It's just an instrument for the service of the Lord. And he wanted to give that body up. His parents, they encouraged him to get married sometime earlier. He did, and they gave him I don't know if a dowry, a gift of $5,000. He gave it again to Srila Prabhupada for his book trust, his book funds. And Prabhupada said, no, you should keep this for your treatments. Jayananda wasn't concerned. The body was giving out and he was getting tired of it. Same mood of Srila Prabhupada. When it's useless, time to give it up. Time to go where Krishna takes you, where the spiritual master takes you, and engage in service. Krishna is eternal, we're eternal. One who serves Krishna lives eternally with Krishna. No more botheration, no more fear of these diseases that attack the body, these worries that attack the mind. The body, it grows, it decays by the rules of the laws of nature, but they have no impact on the self-realized devotees. And Jayananda was such a liberated devotee. Prahlad Maharaj, my goodness, tortured in so many ways, tortured. The attempt to kill him. Hiranyakashipu couldn't believe it. Ineffective, I should say. Ineffective. He could not kill his son because he was protected by Krishna. Prahlad Maharaj's crowning glory, he's always remembering Krishna. He is the, what do we say? That fancy word. He is the personification of remembrance of the Lord. What is that word, Dravida Prabhu? No. What is Prahlad Maharaj? He is starts with a P, I think. He's that's getting closer to the idea I'm thinking about. But anyway, Prahlad Maharaj, he always remembered the Lord. He was absorbed in remembering the Lord before he even exited the womb of his mother, because he got the teaching of the Param Vaishnav Narada Muni. He heard the soul. We're starting to get some change in the direction in our country where some of these states, Texas is just, either they've made it into law or it's soon to be signed into law. It's in the legislative branch anyway. If there's a heartbeat in the womb, don't kill that child. That's life. Prahlad Maharaj is the proof. He's in the womb. He's hearing transcendental sound vibration, the science of the absolute truth and devotional service, and he accepted it. He embraced it and practiced it even while in the womb and came out fully Krishna conscious. Now, how does a baby manifest Krishna consciousness? It has to be internal because the mind and body are not developed in such a way to. But that's what he did his entire life. He didn't play like a frivolous child in Maya, like every child does. No. He simply meditated on Krishna within his heart. When the Lord was not present, when he didn't have the darshan, the vision of the Lord, he would cry. He would cry like the baby crying for the mother. Where have you gone? Where are you? My first memory that I have is standing in the crib crying for my mother. Why'd you leave me here? Where are you? And then when he would see Krishna coming, then he would begin to laugh. When the Lord would touch him, embrace him, hairs stand on end, dancing, chanting, exuberantly, not mindful of the crowd, his surroundings. Bhagavatam says simply by seeing him, his demoniac classmates were being purified and changed into devotees. What to speak of when he began teaching them the science he had learned from his spiritual master. He was so absorbed in Krishna consciousness, he was so far above seeing others as friend and enemy, or this is mine. No thoughts like that. He was amused. God, I've heard about it, but now I'm seeing it firsthand. And he told anyone who would listen, including his father, take to this Krishna consciousness. Give up your attachment to the throne and family life and go to the forest. Go to Vrindavan. Of course, how could Hiranyakashipu, an avowed demon, enemy of the Lord, hear such instructions? But those who were innocent, like his classmates, they accepted. And when he was blessed and later on ruled the kingdom of the demons, they all became devotees. Although he's born in an Asuric family, the blood of Hiranyakashipu coursing through his veins, the DNA of the demons, greatest demon in the history of the universe. He's a great exalted Vaishnava who, it is stated, whenever there is discussion, I should pull that out. So nice. In any assembly where there are discourses about saints and devotees, O King Yudhisthira, even the demigods, what to speak of you, would cite Prahlad Maharaj as an example of a great devotee. Who could list the innumerable transcendental qualities of Prahlad Maharaj? He had unflinching faith in Vasudeva, Lord Krishna, the son of Vasudeva, and unalloyed devotion to him. His attachment to Lord Krishna was natural because of his previous devotional service. Although his good qualities cannot be enumerated, they prove that he was a great soul. So Prahlad Maharaj's good qualities are still being glorified by learned saints and Vaishnavas. This is millions years onward. And if we do our job properly in this international society for Krishna consciousness, establishing the glories of he who really is the cause of all this manifestation of service to Krishna that we see. He's a humble servant, fully dedicated to his spiritual master, but by the efforts of Srila Prabhupada, this movement is spread throughout the world. And if we, his followers, his servants, we do our job properly, the world will come to know that the world was saved by the efforts of Srila Prabhupada and his devotees. And those devotees' glories should also be known. Chaitanya Charitamrita is full of the glories of the devotees. So these biographies we hear of Srila Prabhupada, so often we get to see the glories of the devotees. How do you separate the spiritual master from his disciples and followers? How do you separate Krishna from his devotees? You can't. We talked about Rukmini Devi last night, trying in our inept way to glorify her with a proper perspective, the Gaudiya Siddhanta. And it's interesting to note that the Lord says to Durvasa Muni that without saintly persons for whom I'm the only destination, I do not desire to enjoy my transcendental bliss or my supreme opulences. And those supreme opulences are that of Vaikuntha. They're the manifestation of Lakshmi, Mahalakshmi's opulences that are there in Vaikuntha. But without the devotees, I could care less about them. And he continues to say, I'm completely under the control of my devotees. Indeed, I'm not at all independent, because my devotees are completely devoid of material desires. I sit only within the cores of their hearts. What to speak of my devotees? Even the devotees of my devotees are very dear to me. That should give us hope. What kind of devotee are we? But we're aspiring to be a servant of the Lord. And the Lord said to Uddhava in the 11th canto, this is how I brought up Rukmini Mahalakshmi. My dear Uddhava, neither Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, Lord Sankarshan, the goddess of fortune, nor indeed my own self is as dear to me as you. And Sanatana Goswami gives a purport saying that Krishna in this verse meant to make the general statement that no one else is as dear to him as his pure devotees. All of his exalted Mahabhagavat Prema Bhaktas. But because Krishna became so ecstatic thinking about the specific glories of his devotees, instead of saying my devotee, he unintentionally said, you, Uddhava. Neither Brahma, Shiva, his brother Sankarshan, the goddess of fortune, Queen Rukmini, nor my own very self. In another verse he says, my beauty is attractive to everyone. Krishna, everyone is attracted to Krishna's beauty, to his form. But he says, to me it means nothing compared to my attraction to the unalloyed pure devotees, who Nrsingadev said Prahlad was the best. So by following the example of these great exalted Vaishnavas, Jayananda Prabhu, Prahlad Maharaj, at least hearing about them and cultivating the desire to aspire for this full surrender, that's the secret. Prahlad was fully surrendered to his spiritual master. Jayananda Prabhu was fully surrendered. And when Narada Muni was looking for the greatest devotee and in ecstasy, he's the guru, Prahlad Maharaj, but he's overwhelmed by the good qualities of his disciple. And Brihad Bhagavatamrita, he's glorifying him to no end. Prahlad Maharaj, if it had been anybody else, he would have been angry and raised his voice. But to his guru, he had to respectfully say, Guru Maharaj, what are you saying? And he, one by one, basically tried nullifying any speciality, any unique topmost quality to his acts of service. Instead, deferred him. It's only because of your mercy, your blessings, the Shakti of your pure devotional service that has been reflected in my heart and in my life. Is any and all of this possible? This is the mood of a disciple and a devotee. Don't think ourselves important. Think of ourselves as the servant, the menial servant of the spiritual master, and do everything you can to help him push on this movement, share this glorious, priceless gift of devotional service to Guru, Vaishnavas, and Krishna. If we aspire and act accordingly to this desire, with determination, with steadiness, then we too can be given the blessings that we hear given to a devotee like Jayananda Prabhu, our previous acharyas, the Maharajas. What else is worth desiring? Are there any questions or comments? Any reflections? Yes, Bhakti Mike. Missing his association. If you're satisfied, I'm happy. Funny you ask. I was engaged by him in service, not personally, but my grandmother, I was in Dallas, I had no money. And I wanted to go see the Rath Yatra. The Brahmacharis, the Sankirtan devotees, had gone to San Francisco Rath Yatra in 74. That's the wonderful picture of Srila Prabhupada dancing on stage with hands upraised. Krishna prema emanating from his heart, driving the thousands of people there. Wild with the chanting and dancing of Hare Krishna. So I heard, I wanted to go so badly, and then I asked my grandmother. She gave me the $300 for a round-trip ticket, and I got to go. Hundreds of devotees have come around the country to observe the Rath Yatra, and as a neophyte, I went there to enjoy the festival. The prasadam, the chanting in the parade, this and that. Jayananda knew this. That's not the mood of devotional service. You don't make advancement in that way. That's the neophyte platform. Really putting your mind first before service. The desires of the mind to enjoy. So what he did, he would get donated so much produce, so much. There were tons of potatoes for the Garanga potatoes for the festival. By the way, the Garanga potatoes last night were first class. My obeisances to the devotees who were in the kitchen and assisted in any way making that prasadam. The nice prasadam that it was. I bet I can still say on some of it is. I bet there's Garangas today for breakfast. But he got the most rotten potatoes. These were horrible potatoes. If I were to take that standard of potato home, and if my son Aja were to see it, he'd say, "Dad, what are you doing? I can buy potatoes. Why are you bringing this crap? So bruised, so, oh." And what you had to do with these tons of potatoes. There was, I don't know how many devotees in this kitchen area. My memory is feeble. I just remember my own. Oh my God, it's going to take forever. Cutting away all the bruised potatoes. It was his mercy. He knew, no, devotional service is what purifies one and what pleases Guru and Jagannath. So no, I didn't know him there at that time. In 1976, I got to go there and be present for the original Rath Yatra. Srila Prabhupada was there. And the first time I saw him, his two legs were sticking out from under a car and he was working under the van. He was expert at so many things. Prabhupada said a preacher should become expert in so many ways so that he has the ability. He can walk out the door, drop him out of a plane with a parachute and anywhere, everywhere, and they'll be able to open a temple, make devotees, engage in all the different activities. He was expert in everything. Mechanics, he had it down. He kept the Sankirtan fleet running in the West Coast at the temples he stayed in, San Francisco, Berkeley. Radha Damodar, bus driver, mechanic, etc. But I saw his two legs, and I wanted to know because I'd heard something. So I saw him, and always clean was one of the 26 qualities. Well, when you get under a car, you're not clean. In his clothes, he was so detached. Has no material possessions. I always purported that he's not attached to anything for his own pleasure. And his jeans, may have had holes and this and that, and he was just totally absorbed. Came to Prasadam from the service, and there in New York, the skyscraper temple and the restaurant there, and he took in his overalls, dirty, oily overalls. But when it came time for the programs, and normal days, not Rath Yatra, but run to the shower, jump in that shower, become clean, put on fresh, clean cloth, and then run to ecstatically chant and dance. So I saw him there. And it's like one devotee one time was glorifying Srila Prabhupada, and the person listening to them were so impressed, and they thought, they asked him, so what different times did you meet Srila Prabhupada? And the Mataji said, I never met him. It's like Rukmini. She had never met Krishna, but she gave her heart to the Lord, just simply having heard his glories. So, if you listen attentively, eagerly, ardently to the glories of these devotees, you can develop attachment for them. They can manifest, and their mercy can be had. We should pray to Jayananda Prabhu today. Tomorrow will be Nrsimhadeva's appearance, and we'll pray to Prahlad Maharaj. We'll pray to Nrsimhadeva. I'm going to end with that answer to your question. Srila Prabhupada says, therefore, we should always offer our prayers to Lord Nrsimhadeva, who killed Hiranyakashipu, the personification of material desire. Any devotee aspiring to be free of material desires should offer his respectful prayers to Nrsimhadeva, as Prahlad Maharaj did in this verse. Om Namo Bhagavate Narasimhaya Namaste Tejase Avir Vir Bhava Vrajanaka Vrajadamstra Kamashian Radyan Tamo Grasa Grasa Om Swaha Abhyam Atmani Bhuyishta Om Shkha. The prayer is, I offer my respectful obeisances unto Lord Nrsimhadeva, the source of all power. O Lord, who possesses nails and teeth just like thunderbolts, kindly vanquish our demon-like desires for fruitive activity in this material world. Please appear in our hearts and drive away our ignorance, so that by your mercy we may become fearless in the struggle for existence in this material world. So take up this prayerful mood, not just to the Lord, but to his devotees, not just to the spiritual master, but our previous acharyas and his followers, our spiritual master's followers, Srila Prabhupada's followers. It'll be highly advantageous to you, highly beneficial. So I think that's good enough. Srimad Jayananda Prabhu ke, Sri Prahlad Maharaj ke, Samaveda Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ke, Gaur Premanande.